And
Mm-hmm.
she was only a couple of months pregnant when she contacted me to ask if I would adopt her unborn baby. And through my support and the support of the adoption agency, she got off the drugs during her pregnancy. And my daughter was born a healthy child. And and because of that, then I decided to be a foster mom. And I was blessed with this little girl who has fetal alcohol syndrome, whose mom did not have the ability to get off drugs and maybe didn't have the resources and the support as my daughter's birth mother did. And so now it's, my passion is to be able to help this little girl. And as I look at those blessings, I think there's so many other families out there that's one reason we want to open up this center, and so that we can reach as many families as possible and bring, like I said, together as many experts that are able to connect with these families and to be able to let them know that we are there for them, to service them. And so whatever their needs are, we want to be that place for them.
That's great. And when you mentioned Amber N. Smith, I was like, oh,
yes.
Watch out. Yeah,
yep.
she's going
to
peel back some layers.
Too.
Yeah.
Yep. She has an office in our building. She'll be there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That is fantastic. Ty, is there some other logs that we can throw on that fire? Resources that you know that you have close to your vest that you might be able to throw out there as well? Let's get some ammunition. If you have something to add to that, let's do it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that I can probably provide you, Miss Aliciia, with a whole bunch of good people, good names, and places that you might want to collaborate with.
That would be fantastic.
I would love to do that. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be great.
So if I could get your email address, well, you don't have to give it out on here, but I can get it through Idale, and then we can go from there. I have your number, so I can also call you.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Please do. Yes, that would be fantastic. Idale, you've done a miracle here, Idale. This is the beginning of something outstanding.
That's just great. I have a question, and this is a burning issue because I think that this one is going to get dismissed and perhaps pushed under the rug. But obviously, with the legalization of marijuana in Colorado, we have another issue. And I think folks that think that this is one of the drugs that would not create issues for babies, and it does. Marijuana does, for a fact. So when babies, according to a recent study that was done by the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, and this was reported a while back, exposure to marijuana in the first and the third trimesters of pregnancy can increase the risk of depression in children. I mean, that's scary stuff. So, and I have seen and heard commentary for months now, probably for years now, and folks are saying that this is completely harmless. There's no harm that can ever come out of a consumption of marijuana. Like, give me some kind of facts that says that this is a harmful drug. And here's some facts right here that says basically in first and third trimesters of your pregnancy, you got a tremendous risk of putting your kid or running the risk of putting your kid through some depression, and then later on not knowing why this kid has behavioral issues.
Yes, and one of the biggest problems with marijuana use is that the effects are actually most times very subtle. And the problem with that is that they go unnoticed until they're manifested on a bigger scale. And that is a huge problem to THC exposure.
Well,
Yeah,
and I'd like to...
Oh, go ahead.
No, please, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to share that most often their learning skills and behavior problems manifest when they start to get ready to go into preschool and pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, and then all of a sudden it looks as if it was this automatic problem that's just created itself. And so sometimes it gets chalked up as, oh, this is their level of development. This is where they're at. No. What is this child's history? And sometimes when the people who are actually caring for the children who may have been exposed to marijuana, if that child is transitioned out of that care and go to a new school, and that school doesn't retrieve a release to get those old records, that new school doesn't even know about the exposure. Right. And that is detrimental to that child's progress.
Ty, can I ask a question? I really have been trying to find some research on the effect of, I visit and observe in many different preschools throughout the city and county of Denver and Aurora.
Uh-huh.
And when some of those children come into those schools in the mornings, they reek of marijuana. Mm-hmm. And so I'm wondering, I'm really trying to find some research on what type of effect is this going to have on our children whose parents are now not just smoking cigarettes in the car with them, but are smoking weed as they're driving them to school, as they're sitting in their home, as they're putting them to bed, and so, our young kids, the parents are coming into the school reeking of marijuana, where they're having to try to spray the school, so that it gets the smell out of the school. What effect is this going to have on our children in years to come?
Absolutely.
It seems to me like they're going to have the same type of exposure. I mean, inherently, at some point, the risk of depression or behavioral issues, as you said, Ty, sometimes it releases a little bit later, but it seems to me like eventually it's going to manifest into a problem. We're going to have a school full of kids that are going to have this extended exposure to marijuana. And I'm not saying this from a position of an expert by any means, because this was eye-opening and jaw-dropping to me when I actually found this out recently. But, I mean, I can imagine having a whole school full of kids where you're basically grooming them to be aggressive and to be depressed and to have manic issues that ultimately lead to violence. It's a sad situation, but it's very true.
It's very true.
It's
very true.
It's an unfortunate truth.
I want to ask this question.
Sure.
I want to ask in terms of the period of withdrawal, because that was one of the things that I felt like some folks may have not been educated on as well. Is it seems as though right away after the babies are born, there's a period in which the babies have to go through, that they actually go through withdrawal. So some cases it's not an extended period. I've heard some folks say that it's about a week that they really have to go through aggressive therapy with anti-drugs in order to reverse the effects of the SIDS. Can either of you speak to, from your experience, what the baby ultimately originally has to go through before they can break out and start to go onto the road to recovery?
Right. So actually there are some other factors that play in a part of the withdrawal period. So when you're talking withdrawal, the withdrawal period varies from child to child based on other factors. Those factors include things like your APGAR, which is basically telling you like the development of their lungs and organs and things like that. It also depends on their initial birth weight, their ability to feed, so their motor skills are very important at birth. And it also depends upon mom's ability to whether or not she can give the baby any breast milk at all, because science has shown that the breast milk actually helps the child with their withdrawal period. So it really depends on those other factors, because withdrawal from certain illicit drugs can actually take up to a year. So it really depends upon what drug you're talking about, the other factors that the child is exposed to or suffering from in this life, or how long that withdrawal period can last. Now, when you're talking about alcohol, yes, the half-life is short. But when you're talking about crack cocaine, when you're talking about heroin, when you're talking about things like that, that's not a 7-day period. Sometimes children have to go on, anti-withdrawal medicines, as you said. Some children have to do interferon and different drugs like that. And it really depends upon the length of exposure, the trimester of exposure, as well as the other factors that impact that child's birth.
Yeah, that's a scary reality. And I think that I wanted to make
for the baby.
I'm glad you touched on other drugs other than alcohol, and we're certainly not reducing alcohol, but we're talking about ecstasy, methamphetamines, cocaine, opiate drugs such as heroin during pregnancy. These are all attributing factors to SIDS, and I think what some people like to do when they hear certain messages is they really like to be selective in what they heard. They like to say things like, "Well, you didn't say that I didn't hear him mention meth, so that one should be okay." Right. Or I didn't hear him mention the ill effects of tobacco use. Or I didn't hear him mention an illicit drug like heroin. So those should be still okay. So maybe they took a bad message away, or maybe they manipulated the message because of omission. So I want to make sure that we do get on the record. It's all inclusive when we start to talk about drug use tonight. Period. Dot.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that. Most definitely. Yeah. Aliciia, to you. How has diet been helpful now that she's back in your world? How has diet been beneficial based on what's kind of piggybacking on what Ty was just talking about?
Well, I'd have to say for the 11 months that I had her, we definitely fed her, had to make sure that we had a very healthy diet because her diet before was not healthy. It was a lot of sugar and pop and candy and stuff, and so we just really focused and tried to instill in her to make sure that she was eating healthy food. And she started to gain weight. The last 7 weeks that she was gone, she lost 7 pounds. Oh, and so that's a lot for such a tiny girl as it is. Right now,
from the 32 pounds. From the 32 pounds that she was when you were with. Oh wow. Okay.
Right.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So since she's been at my house for the last 4 days, she has not eaten, and it is a big concern of mine. But I also know that she's very depressed, and she's going through some transitional things that she needs to deal with to be sent back and then back and forth. And so I'm just working with her slowly and getting her to eat. And making sure, things like Pediasure, she takes 3 of those a day, and just making sure that she has a lot of fatty but good food that's going to put some meat on her bones. Because my concern right now is that if she gets sick, she's so tiny, she has no fat on her body, that if she does get sick, she's not going to have the ability to recover.
Absolutely. Aliciia, in your Pediasure drinks that she's drinking, you said 3 times a day, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you tried in 2 times of those drinks to put in some whey protein? Mix it in there?
I have. Yes. I do that.
Very
nice. I sure do.
Wonderful.
I sure do. I do that. I do one in the morning and then one in the evening. We put that in there to add in.
Exactly.
And she drinks those. And, in fact, she had one today. But like I said, right now she's just in withdrawals from being taken away from her mom again and all that she went through during those 7 weeks. So right now we're just slowly trying to get her, back into feeling safe and knowing that she is safe and that she will eat on a regular basis. And that's important because what happens with some of these kids is that because they don't eat on a regular basis, then they start to hoard food, which can also do damage to them. And so hoarding the food or eating a whole lot of food and then getting sick because they're so afraid that they're not going to get food on a regular basis.
One of the scariest things is when she's out of your care, not knowing whether or not food was used as some form of punishment or reward. And so she could be having a reaction to food on a whole different level even. Pray to God, obviously, that that's not the case, but you just never know when you're not there.
Right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely and I just have to say, this is just one child out of so many children out there.
Amen. Yes, absolutely.
Just one.
Yeah, but it starts with this one, and you actually helping them make that positive turn. I think we talked earlier today about you bringing her out of this situation. I would have to ask you, because I know there was one thing that you mentioned earlier that was somewhat troublesome to you, and that is the fact that there is a possibility that she could re-enter into that negative environment